right, first up supplies, you're going to have your white canvas board. You could have painted this earlier if you so choose, but we're just going to work with white. Next, you're going to have your paint. If you've got one of our kits, then you should have red, yellow, white, black. There might be some blue in there. I randomly have green on my palette here. I'll use it a little bit, but you don't need it. I didn't like how it turned out, so it's not going to be in there. Okay, you're also going to have a bunch of Q-tips. You're going to need cold water for this, so make sure you have that on hand. Don't use hot water, always. And okay, so yeah, like I said, Q-tips, and you're going to turn these all into little bundles. I put some rubber bands in there for you so that you can actually just bundle them ahead of time if you want to do that right now. And you can just do them in a variety of like little small ones or big bunches. You'll see in a minute here what we're going to do with them. So if you want to wait, you can decide later. Other supplies in your kit are going to be a pack of brushes. For this particular project, you're probably only going to use a smaller detail brush, maybe a slightly bigger one for making the tree. You're also going to find graphite transfer paper and a template. It is optional whether you want to use the tree template and the graphite paper. I'm going to go and give a short demo of how it works, but you can also just draw a tree if you want. So you are going to need a writing utensil to do this part. So how this works is you're going to take your template of their tree, either the one I provided or if you drew one on a separate piece of paper, and then you're going to take your graphite paper and put it underneath it. And you're going to want the smoother, shinier, darker side face down. You'll put your template on top of it, and then you're just going to trace over the tree. There. And it's hard to see, but that did leave a tiny little mark on there from where I traced over. But because I didn't feel like doing the template all the way, I'm just going to draw in a tree. So at this point, draw a tree. I make mine a little too big, so you might want to not do the exact size that I did. Keep it more like the tree that was in the template size. But you don't have to. You'll see what I mean at the end of this and like how mine looks like it's going off the page a little too much. Okay, quick tree drawing tips 101. Tree trunk towards the bottom is going to be the thickest, and then they'll get thinner as they go up and branch out. Trees are also not just straight lines, so if you do kind of this curvy little aspect and make some dents, it'll make it look a little more realistic. Also, while we're doing this, it's going to get covered up with black paint, so don't get too fixated on being completely perfect with this tree drawing. You'll be able to go over and fix it later, and you don't need to erase a bunch of lines. So you can see I'm just adding branches onto it wherever I decide I think I need one. Other thing when you're doing branches, make sure that they're getting thinner as they go out. It's going to look really weird if you do a really thin branch and then have a giant thick branch coming off of that. Okay, so once you have your tree drawn out, we're going to grab a bundle of our Q-tips. You can do a larger bundle if you want to at this point. And then I'm going to start off with the yellow. So in this, you're going to see me get some water on my paintbrush and put some water into the paint a little bit because it's really thick in this. And I'm going to do the red a little bit and then some of the yellow. At this point, I was trying to decide, like, do I want to do orange first? How do I want to do? But I'm going to start off with the yellow because it's the lightest color, which means it's going to be easier to blend red over yellow than it would the opposite. So if we put the red first and then tried to put the yellow over top of it, we would just end up with an orange mess, and we won't get those bright yellows that we want. So I dump all of my little Q-tips in there, and with the yellow, just go ahead and start dabbing it on the branches. So I'm going to want mine to have the yellow at the top, and then it's slowly going to transition into the darker colors towards the bottom. So I'm just going to go with this yellow all across the top. Very close together, and you don't have to press super hard, just light little taps, and then refill with paint as needed. And this is where you can really see that I did not think about this space-wise, because my leaves are going all off the page here. Alright, so I'm using yellow and red primarily for this. If you want, you can use any other color that you have in acrylic paints, either with what I provided or with what you just have at home. Just keep the color wheel in mind so you don't end up with a weird brown mess. But the colors I'm using here, the yellow and red, you know are going to go together, and they'll just blend into oranges, and they're going to give you that fall look. So now I'm going to go ahead and on my palette, I'm going to blend some yellow and red together to give me an orangey color, to help with that transition to the red. So I get a new bundle, orange, and mix together until it's how I like it. And then I'm just going to go in with a couple and dab them like I did with the yellow. It's a very subtle difference. And then I'm going to go into the darker oranges and reds, go in and blend. So you're just going to keep going and doing this dabbing technique. And you'll notice I'm not doing it all just one big clump. I'm kind of thinning out and going into different spots, because tree color transitions, they're not just like a straight line across. You'll also see me having difficulties keeping my bundles together because I did not provide myself with rubber bands. So feel free to use the ones I gave you because it will make your life slightly easier. So I'm going to keep going, then I'm going to go back in with some yellow in a minute here and just go over kind of what I've done. Right now this is going to kind of look a little goofy. It will look better once we go in with our branches, but for now just keep going and layering and blending right there. So when I'm going over the red with the yellow, it'll give more of that orange color. I just want it to look kind of natural. So I'm going to go in with a smaller amount of Q-tips, just to clean this up and try to get it how I want it to look. So now you get to see the part where I make a poor decision and I decide, we're going to go and try and put some green, because you're thinking like it's going from green and transitioning into the red into the yellow. So I mix up my green, which is just that darker green, but I put some yellow in it. Probably don't want to do this because you'll see what happens here with me, but if you want, you can try. So I get one, I was like, we'll just put a few little green spots in here and just trying to dab them, and then I put some yellow for it. And we'll see when we hit the part where I was like, I'm filled with regret. It is coming up here. So then I'm going to grab the red and was like, let's see how this goes. And I'm just using the one Q-tip at this point, and layering very closely on top of each other. And here we go. Slowly I'm going to start covering up this green mess. So what I'm doing is putting layered little dots over each other to make it go a little faster, make it look denser in certain areas, and then I'll go out a little thinner to get rid of some white space. I'm also going to go down a little bit so my tree has a little more life, so it's not just a big round circle. I'll go out a little. So this is the part where you get to have fun and you just get to keep going and layering and deciding what you think looks right and how you want it to go. Next up, you're going to need your black paint and your brush. So dab your brush in some water, um, take out the excess, like wipe your brush on the side of your cup just to make sure it's not completely dripping water, and get some black on your brush. And you should at this point, unless you went really, really heavy with your red paint, should be able to see your pencil lines. And I'm going to start at the top. This is the scary part because you have to go over everything you just worked on. And I'm going to start doing my branches. And for these smaller branches, I'm going to use a very, very light touch with this small brush. You don't want to put too much pressure on it or you're going to end up with thicker lines than what you wanted. So I'm just going to lightly go down and I'm going to just follow all those guidelines. And I'm probably going to decide to add branches as I go because that's what I do. But if you want, you can just follow exactly what you put there. And I'm going to kind of make an outline so I'm not of where everything's at, and make changes as I go. So yeah, at this point, it's just taking your brush and following all those lines of the drawing that you put in for your branches. And for this, I'm going to just go right over all of my leaves that I put in. Which then, after this dries, I didn't, but it's an option to do. You could, after your branches dry, go back in with your Q-tips and red paint and overlap them over the tree branches, so that would make it look more natural because you're going to have that overlapping. Or you can choose, like I did, just the stylistic choice of just like, nope, branches are in front. This is just how it's going to go. All right, so now we're just going to go ahead and work on painting in our trees. If you would rather have a brown, you could go ahead and take some of the yellow and red paint, mix it together, and add a little bit of black to get more of a brown color. You can play around with your color mixing if you want, or you can just take the easy route and go straight black. If your paint feels like it's not moving very far, it means you need to go and maybe rinse your brush and get some more water on it and add it into the paint. It will make it flow a little bit easier. You don't want too much, so you don't want it to be so much water that your paint turns a gray color. You want just enough so that you get a good flow. And then if you notice while I'm doing this, I'm going very, very light strokes. So my branches, I'm going to be just using the tip of the brush when I do those little branches.